Part 4. The Empire Burns. The rebellions started at dawn across 70 Velcrin worlds. Slaves who had served for generations picked up hidden weapons and fought back. Factories exploded, power grids failed, military installations burned. The Empire, that had ruled through fear, suddenly found itself drowning in chaos. On Velcrin Prime, the capital world, War Master Kralith watched holographic displays showing red alert markers appearing faster than his staff could count them. "This is coordinated," he said, his voice tight with anger. "The humans did this. They armed our slaves." Veskith pulled up communication intercepts. "Yes, War Master. We're detecting human broadcasts on multiple worlds. They're providing tactical support to the rebellions." "Send forces to crush the uprisings immediately," Kralith ordered. "Sir, we don't have enough forces. The human raids have destroyed 30% of our fleet over the past 4 months. The ships we have are scattered across our territory trying to protect supply lines. If we pull them back to deal with rebellions, the humans will destroy our infrastructure. If we leave them to guard infrastructure, the rebellions will spread." Kralith felt something he had never experienced in 200 years of military service. Fear. The humans had trapped him perfectly. Every choice was wrong. Every decision led to more losses. And then the human fleet arrived. Admiral Seojin Han stood on the bridge of the UDS Retribution, now the flagship of humanity's combined military force. Around her, 200 human warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Velcrin space. It was the largest military operation humanity had ever mounted. "All ships report ready, Admiral," the communications officer announced. Han studied the tactical display. The Velcrin had pulled forces back to defend their core worlds, leaving the outer systems vulnerable. "Perfect. Begin Phase 2 of the advance. Target their shipyards first. Without the ability to build new ships, they can't replace their losses." The human fleet split into smaller task forces, each one heading for strategic targets. The Velcrin scrambled to respond, but their forces were stretched thin. Rebellions demanded attention. Human raiders still struck supply lines. Now a full invasion fleet pushed into their territory. The Empire was bleeding from 1,000 cuts. Minho commanded a task force of 20 ships targeting a major Velcrin shipyard in the Orion sector. The facility was enormous, capable of building 10 warships simultaneously. It was also heavily defended. The Velcrin expected attacks there, and had positioned their best remaining forces to protect it. "Admiral wants this one destroyed," Minho told his crew, "and she wants it done loud. Show them that nowhere is safe." The battle for the shipyard lasted 6 hours. Human ships darted in and out of the defensive perimeter, using speed and maneuverability against the larger Velcrin vessels. Dr. Rowe's new weapons proved devastating. Kinetic kill vehicles accelerated to tremendous speeds and punched through Velcrin shields like they weren't there. AI-guided drone swarms overwhelmed point defenses, allowing missiles to strike critical systems, but the humans paid a price. 5 ships were destroyed. 12 more took heavy damage. Over 2,000 human soldiers and crew died in that battle. When the shipyard finally exploded, Minho watched the fireball and thought about those who wouldn't be going home. Victory tasted like ash. Similar battles played out across Velcrin space. Each one pushed the Empire closer to collapse. Each one cost human lives. War was not clean or easy, even when you were winning. On Velcrin Prime, Kralith watched his empire crumble. Reports came in of lost shipyards, destroyed fleets, and successful rebellions. The humans were everywhere and nowhere. They struck fast and vanished. They armed the slaves and turned loyal worlds into war zones, and now their main fleet was pushing toward the capital itself. "We need to negotiate," Veskith said quietly. "We're losing, War Master. If we surrender now, perhaps they'll show mercy." "Mercy?" Kralith's laugh was bitter. "We showed them no mercy. We destroyed their colonies without warning. We enslaved their people. Why would they be merciful now?" "Because that's what separates them from us," Veskith said. "They fight viciously, but they have rules. They don't kill civilians if they can avoid it. They offered aid to freed slaves instead of enslaving them in turn. Maybe if we surrender, they'll let us live." Krelith considered his options. Fight 2. The last and watch his species go extinct, or surrender and beg for mercy from the species he had tried to conquer. Neither choice felt acceptable, but only one offered any hope of survival. Send a message to the human fleet, he ordered. We wish to discuss terms. Admiral Han received the message while en route to Velcrin Prime. She read it twice, then showed it to Taman. They want to negotiate. No, Taman said immediately. They don't get to kill 80,000 of us and then negotiate when they start losing. I agree, Han said. But we should hear what they have to say, if only to make our terms clear. She composed a response. We will meet to discuss terms, but understand this. You don't negotiate with us, you surrender to us. There's a difference. The meeting was held in neutral space, aboard a station built by one of the freed slave species. Krelith arrived with a small honor guard. Han brought Taman, Minho, and Bora. The two sides faced each other across a conference table. Krelith spoke first. We underestimated you. That was a mistake. But continued war serves no one. We propose a ceasefire. We will withdraw from human space. In exchange, you stop your attacks and leave our core worlds alone. Han's expression didn't change. No. No. Krelith seemed surprised. You don't want peace? We want justice, Taman said, his voice cold. You murdered my family. You murdered 80,000 humans who never did anything to you. You enslaved 17 different species. You don't get to walk away from that. Then what do you want? Krelith asked. Han leaned forward. Unconditional surrender. Your military will be disbanded. Your leaders will face trial for war crimes. The species you enslaved will be freed and given reparations. Your technology will be shared with the free worlds to ensure you can never conquer anyone again. And Velcrin Prime itself will be occupied by a peacekeeping force until we're satisfied you've learned your lesson. Krelith's skin flushed darker with anger. You want us to give up everything? To be humiliated before the galaxy? You wanted to exterminate us, Bora said quietly. We're offering you life. I'd say that's generous. And if we refuse? Krelith challenged. If we fight to the last? Minho pulled up a holographic display showing the current military situation. Velcrin forces in red, human and allied forces in blue. The blue was overwhelming. Then you'll lose anyway. But more people will die. Your people. Our people. Is your pride worth that? Krelith stared at the display. He had spent his entire life believing in Velcrin's superiority. His empire had conquered for 2,000 years. How could they lose to a species they had dismissed as primitive? How? He asked quietly. How did you defeat us? Taman answered. You fought with technology and numbers. We fought with strategy and will. You expected us to fight like the others you conquered. We fought like humans. You relied on fear and superior firepower. We used intelligence and adaptability. You thought we were weak because we valued peace. We were strong because we'd learned how to survive war. He leaned forward. You fired first. That was your mistake. You woke up a species that had spent 5,000 years learning how to kill. We just directed that knowledge at you. The silence stretched. Finally, Krelith stood. I need to consult with my government. You have 24 hours, Han said. After that, we resume our advance. And when we reach Velcrin Prime, there will be no more chances to surrender. The meeting ended. As the two sides separated, Veskith approached Taman privately. I was at New Haven, the Velcrin said quietly. I was a junior officer. I followed orders, but I saw what we did. I knew it was wrong even then. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Taman studied the alien for a long moment. Sorry doesn't bring them back, but if you truly mean it, help convince your leaders to surrender. More death serves no one. Veskith nodded and left. Taman watched him go, feeling no satisfaction. Revenge had seemed so important 6 months ago. Now with the Velcrin defeated, it just felt empty. Jiwoo and Hyon were still gone. 20 hours later, Krelith returned. We accept your terms. Velcrin Empire surrenders unconditionally. Han nodded. Smart choice. She transmitted orders to all human and allied forces. Ceasefire effective immediately. Peacekeeping forces will begin occupation of Velcrin worlds tomorrow. War Master Krelith, you and your senior staff are under arrest for war crimes. You'll be given fair trials. As Velcrin soldiers were disarmed and human forces began moving into position, the galaxy watched in shock. The mighty Velcrin Empire had fallen, and it had fallen to a species that had barely reached the stars. News spread fast. Humanity was powerful, humanity was dangerous, humanity had done what 17 other species couldn't. They had won. Part 1. The First Contact Massacre. The stars had always promised humanity a future among them. For centuries, humans looked up at the night sky and dreamed of the day they would walk on distant worlds. That day finally came in 2187 when the first colony ship landed on New Haven, a beautiful planet orbiting a stable star in the Kepler 442 system. The planet had blue skies, clear water, and air that humans could breathe. It was perfect. 50,000 people called New Haven home. They built cities, planted crops, and started families. Children played in streets that had never seen war. Taman Park was one of those colonists. He worked as a security commander for the colony, but his real joy came from his family. His wife Jiwoo taught biology at the new university. His daughter Hyeon was 8 years old and loved to collect rocks from the nearby hills. Every evening, they would sit together and watch the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. On the morning of the attack, Taman was in orbit aboard a supply vessel. He was coordinating the arrival of new equipment from Earth. The work was routine and boring, exactly the kind of boring that colonists loved. Through the viewport, he could see New Haven turning slowly below, a blue and green jewel against the black of space. Then the sky caught fire. Ships appeared from nowhere. They were massive, dark, and covered in sharp angles that seemed wrong somehow. They moved with purpose toward the colony. Taman grabbed the communications panel and tried to hail them. Nothing. He tried every frequency, every language protocol Earth had developed for first contact. Silence. The first beam of energy struck the main city center. The explosion was so bright that Taman had to shield his eyes. When he looked again, a crater existed where thousands of homes had stood moments before. His home. Jiwoo had been there. Hyun had been there. More ships appeared. Dozens of them. They spread out across the planet like a dark swarm. Energy weapons rained down on the colony. Buildings collapsed. Forests burned. The radio filled with screams and pleas for help. Taman shouted orders to evacuate, to take shelter, to fight back. But what could farmers and teachers do against weapons that could burn through steel? The attack lasted 4 hours. When it ended, New Haven was silent. Smoke rose from 100 fires. The beautiful planet looked like it had been scarred by some terrible disease. The alien ships landed and ground troops emerged. They were tall, with gray skin and forearms. They moved through the ruins efficiently, gathering survivors. Taman watched it all from orbit. He was helpless. His small supply ship had no weapons. The rest of the crew sat in stunned silence. One of them, a young woman named Yoona Kim, kept recording everything with her tablet. She was a scientist trained to observe and document. Even in horror, she worked. 3 days later, Earth's military arrived. Captain Minho Choi commanded the defense fleet sent to investigate why New Haven had stopped transmitting. What he found made him sick. The UDS Retribution and her escort ships entered orbit to discover the supply vessel still waiting, its crew traumatized and barely responsive. Minho ordered landing teams down to the surface. What they found was worse than anyone imagined. Bodies lay in the streets. Buildings had been stripped of anything valuable. The alien troops had left, taking thousands of survivors with them. In the central plaza, the aliens had left a message. It was written in English, Chinese, Spanish, and Arabic. The same message repeated in humanity's major languages. Submit or perish. Your worlds are ours now. Yoona went down with the first landing team. While soldiers secured the area and medics looked for survivors, she examined the alien technology left behind. Weapons, tools, pieces of armor. Everything was advanced, but not impossibly so. She found something else, too. A data core from one of their machines. It was still active, still transmitting back to wherever the aliens had come from. She brought it back to the ship and started working on it immediately. The encryption was complex but not unbreakable. After 18 hours of work, she cracked it. What she found inside made her blood run cold. This wasn't first contact. This was business as usual for these aliens. They called themselves the Velcrin Empire. The data showed coordinates of other worlds they had attacked. 17 different species had fallen to them over 2,000 years. The pattern was always the same. Attack without warning. Kill anyone who resists. Enslave the rest. Strip the planet of resources. Move on. Humanity was just the latest target. Minho gathered all the evidence and prepared to return to Earth. Taman refused to leave. He wanted to stay and search for more survivors. But Minho made it an order. Earth needed to know what happened. The families of the colonists needed to know. And the military needed to understand what humanity was facing. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. During that time, news of the attack spread across human space. Shock turned to grief. Grief turned to anger. By the time the retribution reached Earth orbit, the entire planet was demanding answers. The United Defense Council met in emergency session. Representatives from every nation gathered to watch Yuna's footage. They saw New Haven burning. They heard the screams. They read the message. The room fell into terrible silence when the presentation ended. Ambassador Doyen Lee was the first to speak. He was an older man who had spent his life building bridges between nations. He believed in peace and diplomacy. "We must try to communicate," he said. "Perhaps this was a misunderstanding. Perhaps we can negotiate." Fleet Admiral Seojin Han stood up. She was a stern woman with gray hair and hard eyes. She had fought in the water wars and the resource conflicts. She understood violence. "They murdered 50,000 civilians without provocation," she said coldly. "They left a message telling us to submit. What exactly do you want to negotiate?" The debate raged for hours. Some wanted to sue for peace. Others wanted immediate retaliation. Taman sat in the gallery and listened to them argue over his dead family. Finally, he stood and walked to the speaker's platform. He was not a politician or a diplomat. He was a man who had lost everything. "My wife taught children about the beauty of life," he said quietly. The room fell silent. "My daughter collected rocks. She wanted to be a geologist. They're gone now, vaporized by aliens who didn't even bother to say hello before they started killing." He looked around at all the assembled leaders. "You can debate and discuss all you want. But understand this. They will come back. They will attack Earth, and they will not stop until we're all dead or enslaved. The only question is whether we die on our knees or standing up." The council took a vote. It was not unanimous, but it was decisive. Humanity would prepare for war. But first they needed to know more about their enemy. Taman volunteered immediately to lead reconnaissance missions. Minho and his crew volunteered to go with him. Yuna would analyze everything they found. As the meeting ended and people filed out, Admiral Han approached Taman. "I'm sorry for your loss," she said. "We'll make them pay for what they did." Taman looked at her with empty eyes. "Payment isn't enough," he said. "I want them to regret the day they found us." Far away in the darkness of space, the Velcrin Empire continued its conquest. They had already forgotten about the small colony they destroyed. It was just another world, another primitive species. They had no idea that they had just made the biggest mistake in their 2,000-year history. They had attacked humanity. And humanity never forgets. Part 3. The Wolf's Teeth. The stealth ship drifted through Velcrin space like a ghost. Its hull absorbed sensor scans and its engines ran cold. Inside, Taman Park studied the tactical display showing a Velcrin supply convoy moving through the Deneb sector. 12 transport ships carrying fuel and ammunition, protected by only 3 escort cruisers. The Velcrin felt safe in their own territory. That was their first mistake. "Contact in 40 minutes, Minho Choi said from the pilot's seat. His hands moved across the controls with practiced ease. "The convoy will pass through the asteroid field exactly as Yuna predicted." Taman smiled grimly. Yuna's analysis of Velcrin patrol patterns had been perfect. The aliens were creatures of habit. They used the same routes, the same schedules, the same defensive formations. 2,000 years of easy victories had made them predictable. That was their second mistake. The human strike team consisted of 30 soldiers, all volunteers, all knowing they might not return. They wore combat suits designed to mimic Velcrin technology, making them nearly invisible to the alien sensors. Their weapons were a mix of captured Velcrin guns and human innovations. Dr. Rowe had modified the projectiles to punch through Velcrin armor more effectively. As the convoy entered the asteroid field, Minho maneuvered the stealth ship behind a large rock. The team launched in small attack pods, each one disguised to look like space debris. They drifted into position around the convoy, patient and silent. All teams ready. Taman whispered into his comm. On my mark. He watched the lead transport ship glide past, so close he could see the Velcrin markings on its hull. Mark. Chaos erupted. The attack pods activated and magnetic charges attached to the transport ship's engines. The explosions came simultaneously, crippling all 12 transports at once. The escort cruisers turned to respond but found human soldiers already boarding their ships through emergency airlocks. Inside the lead cruiser, Taman and his team moved fast. The Velcrin crew rushed to battle stations, but they were too slow. Human combat tactics, refined through centuries of urban warfare and close-quarters fighting, overwhelmed them. Within minutes, the cruiser was secured. The same scene played out on the other two escorts. This was humanity's new strategy. Fast, brutal, precise. The Velcrin expected grand battles with ships trading fire at long range. Instead, they got ambushes and sabotage. Humans fought like wolves, picking off stragglers and avoiding fair fights. Over the next 3 months, similar strikes happened across Velcrin space. A fuel depot destroyed. A communications relay sabotaged. A military commander assassinated on his own flagship. Each attack was different, but all carried the same signature. Humans were in Velcrin territory and the Empire couldn't stop them. War Master Krelith commanded the Velcrin military. He was old by their standards, having led campaigns against 6 different species. He had crushed resistance movements and conquered worlds. But he had never faced anything like this. His forces outnumbered the humans 100 to 1, yet his supply lines were burning. His soldiers were afraid to patrol alone. Every day brought new reports of missing ships and destroyed facilities. How? He demanded at a strategic meeting with his officers. How can these primitives be doing this? We have the best technology, the largest fleet. They should be begging for mercy. His intelligence officer, a younger Velcrin named Veskith, pulled up data on the holographic display. Our analysis suggests they're using unconventional tactics, War Master. They don't engage in direct combat. They hide, ambush, and retreat. It's dishonorable. Dishonorable? Krelith roared. They're winning. Honor means nothing if we're dead. He studied the pattern of attacks. Send additional patrols. Triple the guards on our supply depots. I want every ship traveling in convoy with heavy escort. But increasing patrols just gave humans more targets. And heavily armed convoys moved slowly, making them easier to track and ambush. The Velcrin were learning a painful lesson. Superior technology meant nothing if your enemy refused to fight the way you expected. Meanwhile, on a Velcrin industrial world called Talvos, something else was happening. Dr. Hajun Ko had arrived 3 weeks earlier disguised as a slave trader. He spoke to the conquered species working in the factories and mines. 17 different civilizations, all crushed by the Velcrin, all forced to serve their conquerors. We're human, Hajun told them in secret meetings. The Velcrin attacked us, killed our people. Now we're fighting back. And we want to help you fight back too. At first, the slaves didn't believe him. The Velcrin had ruled for so long that freedom seemed impossible. But Hajun showed them footage of Velcrin ships burning. He showed them data on the successful human raids. He proved that the mighty empire could bleed. We'll give you weapons, he promised. Intelligence, coordination. On a signal, you rise up all at once across all Velcrin worlds. While they're busy fighting us from outside, you destroy them from within. One of the slave leaders, a being whose species had been conquered 500 years ago, asked the obvious question. Why should we trust you? How do we know you won't just replace the Velcrin as our masters? Hajun smiled. Because humans learned a long time ago that slavery is wrong. We fought a war against ourselves to end it. We know what it's like to fight for freedom. When this is over, you'll be truly free. No masters, No conquerors, just free people choosing their own path. The slaves began to believe. Weapons were smuggled in piece by piece. Communication networks were established. Training happened in secret. Across dozens of Velcrin worlds, a rebellion was brewing. Back in Velcrin space, Lieutenant Commander Borashin was preparing the most daring raid yet. Talvo Station was a massive military installation, home to 50,000 Velcrin soldiers and the sector's main fuel reserves. It was considered impregnable. That's why Bora wanted to destroy it. Her team had captured a Velcrin heavy cruiser 3 weeks earlier. They repainted it, uploaded false identification codes, and filled it with explosives. Now they approached. Talvo's station broadcasting proper clearance codes and acting like they belonged there. Talvo's control, this is Cruiser Vengeance returning from patrol, Bora said in perfect Velcrin language. Yuna had taught her the proper cadence and pronunciation. Requesting docking clearance for refueling. Clearance granted Vengeance. Proceed to Dock 7. It was almost too easy. The cruiser docked and human soldiers in Velcrin armor disembarked. They moved through the station with confidence, uploading a virus to the communication system as planned. The virus was Dr. Rowe's masterpiece. It would spread through the entire Velcrin military network, corrupting data and creating confusion. While the virus worked, Bora's team planted additional charges throughout the station. They had 40 minutes before someone noticed the virus. They needed 30 to complete the job. Timing was everything. At minute 32, an alarm sounded. A Velcrin technician had detected the virus. Security teams mobilized, but the humans were already moving. They fought their way back to the docked cruiser, taking casualties but maintaining formation. 3 soldiers died holding a corridor so the others could escape. Their sacrifice wasn't in vain. The cruiser undocked and accelerated away from the station. Behind it, Talvo Station erupted in a massive explosion. The fuel reserves detonated, creating a fireball visible from 3 star systems away. 50,000 Velcrin military personnel died instantly. The sector's main supply hub ceased to exist. News of Talvo spread like wildfire. Among humans, it was celebrated as a major victory. Among the Velcrin, it caused panic. If Talvos could fall, nowhere was safe. Among the enslaved species, it sparked hope. The Empire could be beaten. Bora's team made it back to human space. Only 27 of the 40 soldiers who started the mission survived. They were awarded medals and given 2 weeks of rest. Bora spent that time writing letters to the families of the fallen. Each letter said the same thing. Your loved one died fighting for humanity's survival. They will never be forgotten. Minho and Taemin returned from another successful raid to find Admiral Han waiting for them. Phase 1 is working better than we hoped, she said. The Velcrin are reeling. Their supply lines are a mess. Their soldiers are demoralized, but we're losing people. Good people. Every raid costs us lives we can't replace as easily as they can. Then we move to Phase 2 faster, Taemin said. Give Dr. Ko the signal. Tell the slaves to rise up. Let's turn the whole empire into a battlefield. Han nodded. The signal goes out tomorrow. Every Velcrin world with enslaved populations will see rebellion at the same time. It'll be chaos. Good, Minho said. Chaos is what we do best. The Velcrin want order, predictability, easy victories. We'll give them the opposite. We'll give them hell. That night, across Velcrin space, a coded message reached every slave colony. 3 simple words. The time is now. The Empire was about to learn that conquering is easy. Holding what you've conquered is much harder, especially when your slaves remember what freedom feels like. Part 2. The Council's decision 6 months passed after New Haven burned. 6 months of preparation, of building, of learning everything possible about humanity's new enemy. Taemin Park led teams on 12 different reconnaissance missions into Velcrin space. They used captured technology and stealth systems to slip past alien patrols. Every mission brought back more intelligence. Every piece of data painted a darker picture. The Velcrin Empire was vast. It controlled hundreds of star systems. Their military was powerful, organized, and ruthless. But as Yuna analyzed the data, she found something interesting. The Velcrin fought in predictable patterns. They relied on superior technology and overwhelming force. They would enter a system, destroy any resistance with their big ships, and claim victory. It worked for them because none of their previous victims knew how to fight back effectively. But humans knew how to fight. They had been doing it to each other for thousands of years. Yuna presented her findings to the Defense Council. The Velcrin have never faced a species with our military history, she explained, displaying holographic images of their battles. They conquer through intimidation and firepower. But they have no concept of guerrilla warfare, no understanding of asymmetric tactics. They've never had to face an enemy that fights smart instead of just fighting hard. Dr. Jun Ro stood next to her. He was a weapons physicist who looked more like a grandfather than a military scientist. But his mind was brilliant and dangerous. I've been studying their technology, he said. Their shields are strong, but they have weaknesses. Their ships are powerful, but they're designed for direct confrontation. If we can fight them on our terms instead of theirs, we have a chance. Ambassador Doyen Lee still advocated for peace. He had supporters, people who believed that any war with an empire that powerful would lead to human extinction. We should try to make contact, he insisted. Send ambassadors. Open communication channels. There must be a way to resolve this without more bloodshed. Captain Minho Choi shook his head. He had seen New Haven. He had helped pull bodies from the rubble. Ambassador, with respect, they already made first contact. They did it with bombs. The message they left was clear. Submit or die. There's nothing to negotiate. The debate continued day after day. The world watched as its leaders struggled with an impossible decision. Fight an empire that had conquered 17 civilizations, or surrender and hope for mercy from conquerors who had shown none before. Then the Velcrin made the decision for them. A human outpost called Frontier Station orbited a gas giant in the Tau Ceti system. It was a mining operation with 30,000 workers and their families. The station had been on high alert since New Haven, but the Velcrin attack came without warning. 3 of their warships appeared and opened fire immediately. The station's small defense platforms were destroyed in minutes. Escape pods launched, but the Velcrin ships hunted them down systematically. They destroyed every single one. This time, the Velcrin left a different message. They broadcasted across all human frequencies. The translation was simple. This is your second warning. Abandon all colonies beyond your home system. Refuse and we will destroy Earth itself. The footage reached Earth within hours. Minho watched it in the military command center. His hands gripped the edge of the console so hard his knuckles turned white. 30,000 more dead. Men, women, children, all gone in an afternoon. Admiral Seojin Han called an emergency meeting of the Defense Council. Every representative was present. The mood was different this time. Even the peace advocates looked shaken. Doyen Lee sat silently, his face pale. He had lost a nephew on Frontier Station. Admiral Han stood at the head of the table. She looked at each person present before speaking. We have a choice to make, she said. Her voice was steady and cold. We can abandon our colonies. We can retreat to Earth and hope they leave us alone. Or we can fight. Fight? One representative asked. How? They have hundreds of ships. We have dozens. They have hundreds of ships, Han agreed. But we have something they don't. We have 5,000 years of warfare behind us. We have tactics they've never seen. We have weapons designed by species that spent millennia learning new ways to kill each other. She activated a holographic display showing military readiness reports. In the 6 months since New Haven, we've built 40 new warships. We've trained 200,000 soldiers. We've developed weapons specifically designed to counter Velcrin technology. And we've learned everything we can about how they fight. Dr. Rowe stepped forward. We can hurt them, he said confidently. We can hurt them badly, but not in the way they expect. We won't meet them in open battle where their superior numbers win. We'll bleed them, sabotage, ambushes, hit their supply lines, destroy their infrastructure, make them afraid to patrol their own space. Taman Park spoke up from where he stood against the wall. The Velcrin enslaved 17 species, he said. I've seen the data. Those species are still alive on Velcrin worlds, working in their factories, mining their resources. If we can arm them, coordinate with them, we turn the Empire's strength into weakness. They'll be fighting us from outside and rebellions from within. One of the representatives, a woman from the African Union, raised her hand. What about Earth? If we fight and lose, they'll destroy our homeworld. That's extinction. If we don't fight, Minho said quietly, they'll enslave us. I've seen what they do to conquered species. Death might be better. The room fell silent. Everyone understood the stakes. This was not a war for territory or resources. This was a war for survival. Humanity would either win completely or cease to exist as a free species. Admiral Han looked around the table one last time. Those in favor of initiating military action against the Velkrin Empire? Hands rose slowly, one by one. Even Doyen Li, after a long moment, raised his hand. It was unanimous, Han nodded. Then we're at war. She touched a control on the table and a massive holographic display appeared, showing human space, Velkrin space, and the vast darkness between. Operation Reckoning begins immediately. Phase 1 is unconventional warfare. Captain Choi, Commander Park, you'll lead strike teams deep into enemy territory. Your job is to make them bleed. Sabotage, assassination, terror. Everything we've learned about asymmetric warfare goes into practice. Phase 2, she continued, highlighting several Velkrin systems. We arm the enslaved species. Dr. Ko's team will make contact and provide weapons, intelligence, and coordination. We turn their empire against itself. Phase 3, she touched the display and it zoomed in on the Velkrin home system. We take the fight to their capital. We show them that strength doesn't come from technology or numbers. It comes from will. And humanity's will to survive is absolute. The meeting ended and people filed out to begin their tasks. Taemin stayed behind. Han approached him. I know what you lost, she said. I know this is personal for you, but I need you focused. Revenge makes people stupid. Taemin looked at her with eyes that had not seen peace in 6 months. This isn't revenge, Admiral. Revenge is emotional. This is justice. And justice requires a clear head and a steady hand. The Velkrin will pay for every life they took. Not because I'm angry. Because it's necessary. They need to learn that attacking humanity has consequences. Han studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Good. Because we need you smart, not angry. You leave for Velkrin space in 3 days. Minho's team will go with you. Make them regret they ever found us. Over the next 72 hours, Earth became a war machine. Factories that once built civilian ships retooled to produce warships. Training facilities expanded to handle the flood of volunteers. Scientists worked around the clock developing new weapons. The entire species mobilized with a unity it had never known before. Yuna barely slept, analyzing Velkrin communications intercepts and defensive patterns. She found weaknesses in their patrol routes, gaps in their sensor coverage. Every piece of information went into planning the first strikes. On the 3rd day, Taemin and Minho stood on the launch deck preparing to board their stealth ship. A reporter asked Taemin what he would say to the Velkrin if he could speak to them directly. Taemin thought about Jiwoo and Hyun. He thought about 50,000 colonists who just wanted to build a new life. He thought about 30,000 workers who died begging for mercy that never came. I'd tell them they made a mistake, he said simply. They thought we were weak because we sought peace. They thought we were easy prey. They fired first. Now they're going to learn what happens when you wake up a sleeping giant. The ship launched into the darkness. Behind it, Earth prepared for the largest military operation in human history. Ahead in Velkrin space, an empire that had never known defeat was about to learn fear. The war had begun. Part 5. Unforgettable. 2 years after the fall of the Velkrin Empire, New Haven looked different. The burned cities had been rebuilt. Trees grew where craters once scarred the land. Children played in parks built over mass graves. Life continued because that's what life does. But the scars remained, visible to those who knew where to look. Admiral Taemin Park stood before a monument made of black stone. On it were carved 80,000 names, every human who died in the Velkrin attacks. His wife and daughter's names were near the top. His hand traced over the letters, feeling the grooves cut into the stone. I kept my promise, he said quietly to the memorial. They paid for what they did. The empire is gone. The slaves are free, but you're still gone. Behind him, Commodore Minho Choi approached. He had been promoted twice since the war ended. Now he commanded Earth's peacekeeping forces in former Velkrin space. The dedication ceremony starts in an hour, he said. They want you to speak, Taemin nodded. What do I say? That revenge felt good? It didn't. That winning was worth the cost? 12,000 humans died in the war. Was it worth it? You know it was, Minho said. If we hadn't fought, we'd all be slaves or dead. You gave us a chance to survive. That's worth everything. The ceremony drew beings from across the galaxy. 47 different species sent representatives. They came to see the monument and to understand what had happened here. A Velcrin ship had fired on this peaceful colony. That single act of violence had changed galactic history. Ambassador Yunha Moon gave the main address. She was young for a diplomat, barely 30, but she had been chosen to represent humanity at the new Galactic Council. She stood before the assembled crowd and spoke clearly. 2 years ago, humanity reached for the stars with open hands. We came in peace. We offered friendship. We were answered with death. She gestured to the monument. 80,000 innocent people died because an empire saw kindness as weakness. They learned differently. Today, that empire is gone, not destroyed but transformed. The Velcrin people live freely now, without the war machine that defined them for millennia. She paused, looking at the alien representatives. Let me be very clear about something. Humanity did not want war. We did not seek conquest. We fought because we were forced to fight. But once committed, we fought with everything we had. Every trick, every tactic, every weapon. We fought smart and we fought hard, and we won. Some of the aliens shifted uncomfortably. Good. They should be uncomfortable. The lesson here isn't that humanity is violent, Yuna continued. The lesson is that humanity survives. We've been surviving for hundreds of thousands of years. We've faced ice ages, plagues, famines, and countless wars against ourselves. We learned from all of it. We adapted. We grew stronger. She looked directly at the cameras broadcasting her speech across the galaxy. So here is what I want every species to understand. Humanity will always extend the hand of friendship first. Always. We believe in peace and cooperation, in building something better together. But if you strike that hand, if you attack us without provocation, you will learn why we survived when so many species went extinct. You will face an enemy that has spent 5,000 years perfecting the art of war. An enemy that fights not with honor but with strategy. An enemy that never forgets and never forgives threats to its survival. The crowd was silent. Yunha's words were being heard across the galaxy. She was defining humanity's place in the galactic community, not as conquerors, not as victims, as survivors who would defend themselves absolutely. The Velcrin fired first, she said. Humanity's response was unforgettable. Not because we were cruel, though we were ruthless. Not because we were powerful, though we proved to be strong. But because we were competent. We identified their weaknesses. We exploited their arrogance. We turned their strength into vulnerability. We won not because we were lucky, but because we were better at war than they were. She looked at the monument one last time. These 80,000 people wanted to build a new world. They wanted to farm and teach and raise families. They died for no reason except that someone thought they could be killed without consequence. They were wrong. There were consequences. The Velcrin Empire learned them. The galaxy watched it happen. And now everyone knows. Humanity seeks peace. But if you want war, we will teach you why that's a mistake. The speech ended. Representatives from dozens of species approached Yunha afterward. Some wanted to form alliances. Others wanted to ensure they were on good terms with Earth. All of them had gotten the message. Humanity was not to be trifled with. That evening, in a bar on Mars, human veterans gathered. They had fought at Talvos, at the shipyard battles in the final assault on Velcrin Prime. They bore scars, both visible and hidden. Captain Subin Jung sat with them, her pilot's jacket marked with mission patches. One of the freed aliens, a being whose species had been enslaved for 300 years, approached their table nervously. "Excuse me," they said. "I wanted to thank you. My people are free because of what you did." Subin smiled. "You freed yourselves. We just gave you the tools. But why?" the alien asked. "You could have just defeated the Velcrin and taken their empire for yourselves. Why free us?" "Because that's not who we are," Subin said. "Humans learned a long time ago that slavery is wrong. We fought a war against ourselves to end it. Cost us hundreds of thousands of lives. But we learned the lesson. Freedom isn't just for us. It's for everyone." The alien sat down, curiosity overcoming nervousness. "What made you so good at fighting?" "The Velcrin had better technology. More ships. More soldiers. But you won anyway." Subin considered the question. "We'd been fighting each other for thousands of years," she said finally. By the time we reached the stars, we knew every dirty trick, every desperate tactic, every way to win when you're outmatched. The Velkrin fought with honor and tradition. They had rules. We fought to survive. And survival doesn't care about rules. It only cares about winning. Another veteran added, plus we were angry. They killed our people without warning, without reason. That kind of anger, properly directed, is a powerful weapon. We channeled it into strategy. Every battle plan was built on rage but executed with cold precision. And we had something to fight for, a third veteran said. The Velkrin fought because their empire told them to. We fought to protect our families, our homes, our future. When you're fighting for survival, you don't give up. You don't surrender. You find a way to win or you die trying. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening. The freed species told stories of human commandos appearing from nowhere to arm rebellions. They spoke of human ships that fought like they had nothing to lose. They described a species that somehow combined technological innovation with savage effectiveness. On Earth, Dr. Yuna Kim published her comprehensive study of the war. Why they fired first, why they lost, became required reading in every military academy across the Federation. Her conclusion was simple. The Velkrin underestimated humanity. They saw peace-seeking as weakness. They didn't understand that choosing peace when you're capable of war is strength, not weakness. War Master Kralith sat in a comfortable prison, awaiting his trial. He had time to think about his choices. He read human military history and felt a growing horror. These beings had fought hundreds of wars against themselves. They had developed weapons capable of destroying their entire world. They had nearly driven themselves extinct multiple times. And somehow they had survived all of it and reached the stars. We never had a chance, he told Veskith during a visit. I thought we were fighting primitives. We were fighting survivors of 5,000 years of warfare. They knew things about combat that we never imagined. Veskith nodded. I've been studying their history. Do you know they once fought a war that killed 70 million of their own people? And they learned from it. They analyzed every battle, every mistake, every tactic. Then they wrote it all down so future generations could learn. They've been preparing for war since before they could write. And we attacked them, Kralith said bitterly. We destroyed their colony and expected them to submit. Instead, we woke up something terrible. Not terrible, Veskith corrected. Effective. There's a difference. They could have exterminated us. They had the power after we surrendered. Instead, they gave us trials, justice, a chance to rebuild. That's not terrible. That's terrifying in a different way. They're capable of complete destruction but choose restraint. That's true power. The trials concluded 6 months later. Kralith and 17 other Velkrin leaders were found guilty of war crimes. Their punishment was exile to a monitored world, where they would spend the rest of their lives. The Velkrin people, freed from their imperial government, began the slow process of rebuilding their society. On the anniversary of New Haven's destruction, Taman returned to the monument. Thousands gathered to remember. Yuna was there, now leading the Federation's Xenology department. Mino came, bringing his crew. Bora attended, walking with a limp from an injury that never quite healed. They were joined by freed slaves, Velkrin who opposed the war, and representatives from every species in the Federation. They stood in silence as the names of the dead were read. 80,000 names took hours to recite. No one left. They owed it to the dead to remember.